You're listening to 106.9 Tune FM here on the home of UNE's student-powered radio. And today we have a very special guest with us in our online studio. We've got Brandon Lee, the creator of Cartograph. Thank you so much for joining me today, Brandon. It's really great to have you here, and I hope our listeners out there who have played are getting a little bit excited as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat about the game and be on. And yeah, thanks for having me.
And I think it's such a unique game as well. I think journaling and single player, particularly tabletop RPGs in this sense, has sort of become a lot more popular in specific circles these days. When did you first find out about single player TTRPGs?
Oh, I think probably similarly to a lot of people, it was during the COVID lockdowns. So I was living in Melbourne at the time. And as folks know, the Melbourne lockdowns were pretty brutal. So I was kind of isolated from my main play group and stuff, and still had that itch to play TTRPGs. And that's when a friend recommended solo role playing games, and I started looking into it, and I immediately got hooked. I played like Iron Sworn for a good while there, and then A Thousand Year Old Vampire, and those two games really sort of made me realize how much you can scratch that TTRPG itch playing on your lonesome, and it was really, really good. And then I sort of, one thing led to another, and I was like, maybe I could make one. But like, I've always enjoyed writing, and these games that present a journaling aspect to the game are such a fun way to facilitate that, if that's something you enjoy. So yeah, it was really the COVID lockdowns that kind of spurred this exploration of solo role-playing games.
I think it sort of spurred an exploration of a lot of things and a lot of people. I know so many people who started getting
Yeah,
into, online games or
yeah,
solo journaling or books or writing just because they didn't have anything else to do. So it's kind of nice, isn't it, that,
yeah,
that there's something beautiful coming out of something that was really dark for a lot of people.
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
certainly grateful we have this game.
Yeah, oh,
Um,
thank you.
and so you've got a lot of experience then with role playing games.
Yeah, I started playing role-playing games when I was pretty young. I was very fortunate to have an uncle who had been playing D&D from its conception, sort of thing. And so he ran a home game for us in like advanced Dungeons and Dragons for me and a bunch of my high school buddies. And that really was like, it got its hooks in me. I was like, man, this is what an awesome thing to just have no limits. I can do whatever I want. We get to make a story as we go. So I've been playing since I think I was about 14, playing role playing games, and I've since sort of diverged away from D&D. Just it's sort of become apparent being in the indie scene how many incredible other games are out there, and I can't help but just want to explore all of them. So it's been a long time since I've actually touched D&D, but yeah, I still play regularly. We have a group that I jump online with, and we cycle through like short campaigns. So we'll have like 12 sessions maximum, and every single campaign will rotate to a different DM and a different system. And that's been a really nice way to sort of explore different games and hone your skills as a player or a GM. And yeah.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's something that some of my friends do the same as well. They
Mm.
kind of got bored with D&D and so went to alternate systems with alternate stories to tell. And I think that's sort of where the beauty of the indie scene comes into it, is
Mm.
there's all these different elements that don't have to cater to the people who make the money.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
exactly.
you can have some fun with it. So you've said that Cartograph was inspired. What came out of you playing these journaling and these solo RPGs during
Yeah.
the lockdown? What was it that actually inspired Cartograph specifically?
Uh, that actually came when the lockdowns lifted, and I was so like energized and ready to start playing in person again. So I like, went into a fervor of coming up with some homebrew setting stuff, and I was like, I'm going to make this awesome, huge world, and we're going to like run some games in it and everything. And then I got to like a bit of a writer's block situation where I sat down. And I was like, okay, cool. I got these ideas. I should make a world map so then I can like visually see the world that I'm building and stuff. And I just like couldn't do it. I was like, I don't really know where to start. I don't know how to make this look cool. I don't know how to make this realistic. And so it kind of dawned on me that maybe I could gamify it for myself so that I could like use a process, use a structure to make this map that I would find enjoyable and would help me get past this block that I was having making this homebrew world. And so then I started just like tinkering with some ideas, and I'd seen some people like make maps on YouTube where they would like throw rice onto like a blank piece of paper and trace it and stuff, or even dice or whatever. And I was like, that's a pretty interesting way to sort of get some organic looking land masses and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, and so I slowly just like for my own purposes built up this system so that I could make this map for this world, which I never ended up doing because I got so sucked into making the game instead, ironically. But yeah, but then I just sort of threw it up on itch.io, and it seemed to have like decent reception. So I was like, maybe I should flesh it out a little bit more. And that's when the Atlas edition sort of came about, because the original Cartograph was a lot lighter and a lot more bare bones and really unrefined comparatively. But that was because it was mainly for me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I think people don't understand the point of journaling games unless they're already enmeshed in sort of the role playing community. But
Yeah.
something like this, which exists as both a tool for other role playing games, but then also as an expression of creativity, I think works really well because it's not daunting to get into it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this is just for me. It's in my own my own little journal. I can keep it private for just me
Yeah.
if I wanted to. And I think that's something that journaling RPGs really have going for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they tap into something that like it always feels personal to write a journal, whether it's an everyday real life journal or you're writing a journal from a character's perspective. There's something personal about it. It's a very intimate act, I think, writing a journal. And I think these games, they get to tap into that in such a lovely way, because when you're embodying a character, you want to be able to get intimate with that character and know what they're thinking and be in their head. And journaling's a great way to do that.
And you'd be surprised at what comes out just from yourself as well, with
Yeah,
your inner thoughts and subconscious, way you relate with the world.
exactly.
I'm really curious though, Brandon, because I'm someone who I've been tinkering on and off with an RPG idea in the back of my head for a
Ooh,
while.
yeah.
But I've got no idea how to get started. How did you actually go through the process of creating Cartograph in a way that actually worked?
Mm. Um, it was a long iterative process. Like, I think this is something I've heard other game designers echo, and it seems to be the sentiment that a lot of designers, or a philosophy at least, that they stand by. But game design to me is about creating a prototype as quickly as you can. So throwing down mechanics, not worrying too much about balance, just putting some numbers in there so you can see how the system runs, and then trying it out for yourself. And then immediately all these glaring problems will come up, but it's the easiest way to find them, because so often problems can weasel their way in behind mechanics, and they're hidden until you're actually interacting with the mechanics in an experiential way. So I think the game design process for me, I mean, I was very much an amateur when I was making Cartograph, and I still feel like I am a bit now, but maybe that's some imposter syndrome. But nonetheless, it was just a process of like, I'm going to throw some numbers down on the page. I'm going to say, okay, you get like one food and one dice when you do this particular rest action or whatever, and just see how that plays. And then I'd play test, and I probably play tested the game, a good 100 times, probably more in those early stages. But it really helped make me realize where the problem areas were when there was sections of the game I was playing, and I was like, this doesn't make sense, or this isn't fun. And they become very apparent when you do these like quick iterations and then play test. And then once you've done your play test, you come back, refine a couple of things, and then immediately do another play test. And that was kind of like that was the journey I sort of had with the design for the majority of the design, but then, as I worked on Atlas Edition 2, I had a lot of friends at that point that were also sort of game designers, and they really helped me through it all. Nicholas Rabinia, who was one of the other Ravens from Ravensridge, before he joined us, he was also just making indie games and really was encouraging and helpful in that respect. So having other people as well that both are game designers and are not is very helpful, because you need to be able to get perspectives from both because if you show this to a game designer, they're going to immediately see some things that they're going to be like, well, this is like not balanced, or like you need to change this mechanic so that the experience feels like this. But then on top of that, you're not making the game for game designers, you're making the game for players. So you also need to have player feedback, so you can sort of see how these things that maybe the game designer was telling you to implement is working in practice, and then iterate from that.
And also figure out where, a player can just go, I'm going to take a hammer and fix the baby and just completely break it.
Exactly. Exactly.
I know a lot of people in my friend group who are like that.
Yeah.
So this was your first RPG that you've created?
It was my second or third. I think it was actually my second game. Yeah. So I made like a small game with my friend Nicholas for a game jam. And that was when I sort of originally was like, wow, this is really, really fun. I really enjoy game design. And that made me sort of think a little bit more deeply about pursuing it. And that was just a little one-page game. And it was pretty small and pretty simple, but it was fun. And then I sort of moved on to Cartograph, the first edition anyway. Atlas edition came after a couple of other games in between. So I had sort of had a bit more practice designing games before I came back to Cartograph to refine it for the Atlas edition.
And so the Atlas edition is beautiful, like the big hardcover book and everything that's in it. It's such a beautiful game. I'm really curious because you said that you initially made Cartograph as sort of your second game that you've tried, and then now Cartograph Atlas is, after a few games in between. How has your process of actually making games evolved?
Oh, I think it's a good question. Now that Ravensridge is a little bit bigger, there are four of us when previously there were two. We're sort of like coming at it from with a bigger scope, I guess, in mind. So like game design back then was just like, cool, I'm going to sit down and make some mechanics. And now game design is kind of like, okay, what sort of artists are we going to need? Who are we going to have as our editor? What's our budget and all that kind of stuff? Well, that boring business part that kind of comes with it, which is like a double-edged sword. It's great because we get to make bigger, more professional games, but also I spend less of my time actually doing game design these days and more time doing business stuff. But for the process itself, I think I use an application called Obsidian, which is like a note-taking app. And I find that super, super helpful because whenever I have an idea, unless I put it down onto paper, it'll just rattle around in my head until I either actualize it or get it out. And that can be really good if it's an idea for the game I'm working on, but more often than not, it's an idea for a game I'm not working on. So I've come to realize that I need to like push ideas that are not part of the game out and put them on paper so that I don't have to think about them. And then also in the Obsidian app, you have the opportunity to make a lot of these notes that have like interrelated concepts. And so I've found as I've built up this repertoire of these other ideas, I almost have like this library of, thematic ideas or mechanics, all that kind of stuff that I can sort of pull on from maybe past games or ideas that never turned into a game. And that's been really helpful when I'm like, okay, I need like a dice resolution mechanic for this system and I don't have anything that comes to mind. I can look in my application for other dice systems I've particularly used in the past or come up with before. And that's been very helpful. And I think we've also refined our playtesting. We're a lot more rigid with our playtesting now, and like we're trying to particularly playtest how this mechanic works. So please try to break this mechanic, sort of thing, rather than just be like, play the game and tell me if it was fun,
Yeah, give us the rundown. We want point A, B through to D, and
yeah, exactly.
We'll go from there. Yeah, it must be such a very different experience now with how many games you've designed and how much the process has evolved since that first sort of one-page game that you designed during a game jam. Like,
yeah,
I guess it's kind of like watching a kid grow up in a way. Like you get to see the process of everything you've done and see how it's evolved. And I guess I'm asking this because I feel like I have to ask this when I'm in these situations, because I ask it to musicians and artists all the time.
Sure.
Is there more to be coming for Cartograph, or do you feel like it's sort of reached fruition, it's done, it's perfect as it is?
I think there is more to come for Cartograph. I think I've tinkered with some ideas that I think could expand the game in a really fun way. One of them is like a dungeon idea. So in Cartograph, you can mark places as ruins, and they serve some light mechanical implication, but more they're just for you to flavor the fact that the city was not actually populated; it's in ruins now or whatever. But I thought it would be interesting to be able to actually explore those ruins in a more mechanical way. So that's something I've sort of been like loosely working on. And there's also a few people in our Discord server that have been working on a hack of Cartograph for a more seafaring archipelago style adventure. And I've also had the idea that this system could be applied for like starfaring, like sci-fi mapping out a galaxy rather than a landmass. And so I think maybe sometime in the future we might release like a box set that comes with these expansions and maybe some nice dice and stuff like that. But that's probably a few years away yet.
Yeah, yeah. I it does make me really wonder. Are you a fan of Catan by any chance?
I don't mind Catan. Yeah, I'm definitely
Yeah,
a big board gamer, but yeah, I
yeah,
don't mind Catan. It's a good fun.
yeah, yeah. No, because the seafaring and the starfaring,
Oh, of course. Yeah, I see
they're
what you're
things that I'm
saying.
really into. But I think that the beauty of this is that you're jumping into them from a completely different perspective. You don't have to play with 4 to 5 other people and make enemies every time you roll a 7.
Yeah.
You can just have fun on your own. Or something that Cartograph Atlas introduced, I think, was the ability to play either by yourself or as a DM-less, GM-less
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
How do you know, work that into something that started as a solo game?
It was that was a kind of surprising one actually, because I kind of didn't plan for it to happen, but I was asked to run Cartograph at a convention a few years back, and I was like, "Ah, it's a solo game. You guys know that, right?" And they were like, "Well, can you try and make it for a group?" And I was like, "I guess we can try and see how it happens." And so I got like a big roll of like butcher's paper and got some permanent markers, and it ended up just being incredibly fun. And I didn't do really any alterations to the rules. I just sort of made one person be the focus player where they were doing the dice rolling, doing the drawing for that round. And then in the rest phase, all of the characters just picked one action they could do and narrated it. And so there was no journaling, which was, missing from that element. But it worked really well. And I was surprised that it didn't need too much tweaking for it to sort of be a fun experience for a group. And so then I kind of was like, well, I should formalize that in the Atlas edition and maybe make a few rule tweaks to actually balance it, because there were certainly some balance issues. It was very easy when you have like a far larger action economy with 4 players compared to just on your own. So I made some adjustments to make sure that all of the balancing that I had spent so long doing for the solo game wasn't just totally imploded by the fact there are many players now. So that was sort of the main change that I did. And honestly, like, it's the main way I play Cartograph nowadays. I tend to just play it with groups because it is so much fun. It's got that same element that some of these other multiplayer world building games have, like Microscope or The Quiet Ear, where you get like such bizarre and beautiful world building because it's not just coming from you. You might have this concept of like what this city is like and how you would interpret this prompt, but they're the active player, and now they design this bizarre world that's fitting into this world that everybody has collaborated for to. And it's really, really fun. Some of the worlds that have come out of my multiplayer games of Cartograph have been like unlike anything I think I could ever come up myself.
Yeah. Well, I think that's half the fun of it, right?
Yeah.
You go in and the whole point of it, and this is the same with most tabletop and role playing games in general that aren't following a strict narrative on a computer, is they are collaborative. At their core, they're collaborative storytelling games. And that's something I always have to remind people in my groups. I'm like, this is a storytelling game with collaboration. We
Yeah.
need to collaborate and tell a story. And I think that's one of the really wonderful things about games like Cartograph and other ones. I think I've played The Wandering Librarian, which I thought was a really cool little 1 or 2 page game.
It's a great.
You just travel around. You get to have that collaborative aspect with everyone, and it's very much enshrined. And I think people who come into these games knowing that have such a beautiful experience because they're not fighting the game and they're not fighting the other players.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I guess, there's always going to be someone out there who's really worried about, starting to play a game and not knowing if they're going to do it the right way or if there's a wrong way to play it. What advice do you have for people who want to get into playing role-playing games like Cartograph or like the other ones we've mentioned?
I think if it's solo, um, you should just jump in and try. And like, if you get things wrong, like you mentioned, it's okay to get things wrong, as long as you're enjoying the experience. I'm a visual learner, so I tend to watch YouTube videos and stuff of games that I'm unfamiliar with. If I've read through the rulebook and I'm still like, huh,
Yeah.
I'll I'll watch a YouTube video, and usually that helps me sort of seeing someone else do it. I'll be like, oh, okay, cool, I understand now. So yeah, but jump in. If it's a solo game, the bar to entry I find in solo games is really, really low. Like, D&D, it's actually quite a rules heavy game, and so I find like new players getting introduced to D&D, it's a lot to take in for D&D. But like solo games, they can ease you into that, because usually they're a lot more rules light, and you have a lot more agency because you're sort of playing both GM and player. And if it's a structured game or it's a journaling game where you're given prompts and all that kind of stuff, I find those games do just enough hand holding where I never quite feel like lost or unsure on what to do next. And if it's a group game, I think the most important thing for group games is just to have a good group that you're playing with. Have a supportive group. Have a group that aren't going to, belittle you if you make mistakes and all that kind of stuff. Like, play with trusted friends, because I have had a few nightmare stories with groups where I've realized these people aren't actually, great people to be playing with, or maybe even myself, I'm just not gelling with the group, whatever it is. But like, the group makes the story. The group makes the game. The system can be the best system in the world, but if you've got a bad group, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, I hear that echoed a lot. The no group is better than a bad group.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
And bringing it back to Cartograph, that's the beauty of games like this, is you can play it by yourself.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to any of you. I'm going to play by myself.
Exactly.
And I'm going to have a great time. And that's, that's really what it's all about sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's a move that we're seeing in the virtual and digital space of gaming, is that there's all these pushes to have big open world multiplayer games, but actually people want single player story based games.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's almost kind of the opposite, I think, sometimes in the, I guess we'll call it the analog space of like tabletop games. A lot of them are group focused.
Yeah.
But it's really, really cool to see almost a convergent evolution of going back to, we want the single player experience here as well, which is neat.
Absolutely.
Sure, there's a paper on it somewhere.
I'm sure, yeah.
Someone somewhere has gone, yes, that is my academic thesis right there.
Yeah.
Brandon, thank you so much. I'm aware we're wrapping up to the half an hour mark. Is there anything that I haven't asked, that we haven't gone over, that you want to add now before we call it?
Oh, look, I may as well just do a little plug for myself, right?
Yeah, go for it.
If you are interested in playing Cartograph, you can jump into our Discord. We run Discord games of Cartograph every now and then. There's a Discord app, a Cartograph app in development, so you can play online with some friends as well. There's the beta of it up on our Discord as well. And if you're interested in seeing what other games we've got going on, we're working on one that's going to come out next year sometime, called 1,000 Rats Devour a City, and does what it sounds like on the tin. So if that sounds interesting to you, jump into our Discord, join our mailing list, or follow us on Instagram to keep up to date.
And that's the Ravensridge Emporium, which has some wonderful stuff. So check them out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Brandon. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I'm going to go jump in the Discord myself.
Excellent.
And get involved. It's something that, I'm really keen to be involved in, especially seeing indie companies like Ravensridge, based out of Australia. I think Australia is kind of missing a little bit of representation there. So
absolutely.
Thank you for joining me
Thanks for having
morning.
me.